Then we get this random character named Hugo Stiglitz. We cut to a flashback explaining his story. Damn, a flashback inside a flashback. Weird. Apparently this Stiglitz character is a German soldier who went crazy and decided to go on a killing rampage against Gestapo officers. Alright, why did he do this? Why did this character decide to become a traitor to his country and become a psychopath? Again, there's no character development and not much of an introduction. So the movie is called Inglourious Basterds, right? Well, besides this scene, Brad Pitt and his bastards are barely in any other parts of the movie. It switches to this French girl who runs a movie cinema somewhere in France. She meets up with a German soldier who turns out to be a war hero and had a film made about him that starred him. She soon finds out that the man who directed the film, Joseph Goebbels, wants the movie to show at her theater. So now we're concentrating on the cinema of Nazi Germany. Odd. It's also kind of weird that they're not showing it in Germany. She also meets up with an SS colonel played by Christoph Waltz, who was apparently in charge of rounding up Jews in France, and he let her go for some reason like 3 years ago. By the way, this part of the movie when it's telling her story has some of the most tedious scenes I have ever seen in a movie. They go on, and on, and on forever and don't serve any purpose. So the French girl decides that while this movie is being shown and tons of high-ranking officers are attending, she's gonna blow it up. So you'd think we cut back to Brad Pitt and his bastards, right? No. We cut to this operation that the British are putting together. Some guy is giving a cartoon portrayal of Winston Churchill, and Mike Myers plays some British general. Kind of a bizarre cameo. So they come up with the exact same plan that the French girl came up with. Blow up the movie theater that the high-ranking officers are at. They make it seem so easy. The British guy meets up with Brad Pitt and his bastards, and they follow the 60s war cliché with going undercover as German soldiers. They meet up with some fictional movie star who's also undercover, and she's going to help them with blowing up the theater. I think this was the scene that my friend Onse hated the most when we saw this. Let him tell you what he thought about the whole thing.
Alright, so you probably heard my voice on a few of other Michael's videos, but I will explain to you the one reason, my personal reason, why I did not like this movie and why it elevates to, for me personally, not the worst war movie, but the absolute worst movie I have ever seen in my entire life. And this is the one reason why. The pacing. Oh my god, the pacing. It was horrible. I agree totally with everything that Michael said already about how it's not historically accurate, but I'm not as big as a World War II buff as him, so I could have forgiven it that if it had at least been done well. Which it wasn't. It was just horrible. Alright, let's watch this scene right here that Michael said, and let's just watch this. Okay, so you see that starting. Okay, now who, wait, what? Who got shot? Who's dying? See, look, it's over. They couldn't even give us the decency of a decent action scene. I mean, I could have forgiven it for everything like, oh, well, the story sucks. Well, we never see Brad Pitt. I'm like, they could have at least given us a big, overblown action finale or anything like that. But no, the scenes that are supposed to be quick and short are dragged on for just what feels like hours, and the one part that you could have gotten stoked for, like, yeah, we're gonna see some blood, yeah, it's like cut so poorly, edited like a drunk monkey was doing it, that all you see are blurs, random blood flying, and by the end of the 30-second shoot 'em up that you didn't even see what was happening, it's all over, and everybody's dead. And then you're left saying, what the heck, man, what the heck?
Thank you, Onse. I thought his reason was worthy enough to add. I would have let him do the whole review, but I don't think he has the soul to go through watching this whole movie again. Okay, after that scene that seemed like 2 hours, there's a stupid and pointless musical number showing that the French girl is getting ready for the big sabotage. It's just another scene that keeps going and going. And if this movie is called Inglourious Basterds, that has a trailer which shows the movie is all about Brad Pitt and his rebel soldiers, why is 75% of this movie about this French girl who's planning on blowing up this movie theater? It should have been called The Tedious Sabotage Tale that would never ever have happened. I guess that's a little too long and a little bit too honest. So Brad Pitt and BJ Novak get captured by Christoph Waltz, and he makes a deal with the Allies on radio that he'll let the operation of blowing up the movie theater continue as long as he's allowed American citizenship and decorated as an American hero for allowing the high command to get killed. The Allies agree. I don't think I even need to explain how unbelievable and stupid that is. Back at the movie, which is apparently the movie that invented squibs, the French girl gets on the projector and informs everyone that they're going to die. Hitler and Goebbels watch in horror as the screen catches fire, then all of a sudden two bastards barge in and riddle them to death. It kind of goes back to war movies from 40 or so years ago, where the whole Third Reich can just be taken out in a cartoonish defeat. While the bastards fire into the crowd, the theater completely explodes and everyone dies. This is a cliche in almost every Quentin Tarantino film, where all the main characters die in the end. As for the story of Inglourious Basterds, it's undeveloped, meat-headed, and all over the place. It sucks, it sucks, it sucks! Now for the big part, the historical inaccuracies. Tarantino said that this movie had nothing to do with history, but when you got historical figures like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Goebbels, and Winston Churchill, I think it's pretty historical. When the movie opens, we get this scene where Christoph Waltz explains to a French farmer that his job is to find all Jews hiding in France. Immediately, I thought this was kind of weird that this story about rounding up Jews was taking place in France. Yeah, it is true that there were French Jews that were rounded up during France's occupation, but it was such a small amount. The majority of Jews were being rounded up in Germany and Poland. Same thing goes for Hitler and Goebbels. Why are they in France in 1944? And what's the deal with Goebbels in this film? They say that he's Germany's #1 film director who made the fictional movie that they're showing in France. Well, Goebbels wasn't a film director, he was a politician and Reich Minister of Propaganda. He said in his speeches that film is a great way to use propaganda, and he did promote many German films, but he didn't make them himself. But what I was saying is that for some reason Tarantino put this movie in France, when it more appropriately should have been located in Germany with all the rounding up of Jews in the German High Command. And it's pretty stupid that they have the whole thing with the Jews in this film. It's not just the French girl who's supposed to be Jewish, the bastards are all supposed to be American Jews, and that's the reason why Brad Pitt recruited them, because he thinks that being Jewish will make them hate Nazis more. This movie makes it seem like the only reason why World War II happened was because the Germans were a bunch of bullies and all they wanted to do was kill Jews just for the hell of it and take over the world. It doesn't make any sense because while the war was going on, nobody knew about the torture and mass murder that was going on in concentration camps. It was all secretive, and actually, the Allies didn't even know about camps holding Jews existed. I guess not too many people put it in perspective, like how episode 9 of Band of Brothers did, where they enter the abandoned camp and are totally clueless.
Jesus, Webb, can you believe this place? No.
At the beginning, when Christoph Waltz is talking to a farmer, he starts to explain why the Nazis are rounding up Jews. He says it's no different than a rat wandering into your house. You don't know why you hate it, you just do, and your instinct is to kill it. Well, that's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. The Nazis totally had a reason for murdering the Jews. It may have been wrong, but they had a reason. Think about Germany after World War I when Hitler was coming to power. Lots of Germans were very poor and hungry, while most businesses owned by the Jews were very successful in spreading. As Hitler says in his book Mein Kampf, which he wrote while he was in prison, Aryanism believes that the Jewish people's ultimate goal in life is to overthrow the controlling government. So when Hitler saw that the Aryan Germans were a mess and Jews were the successful ones in Germany, he took to it that that would end. When Jews were rounded up, they took everything they had that was valuable in order to raise German wealth. As many uneducated people have said, as this movie really shows, they think that the Nazis' ultimate plan was to take over the world and have only a race of blonde-haired and blue-eyed people. Well, that's kind of a simplistic way of looking at it. If Germany's ultimate goal was just to make their country the whole world, they wouldn't have been allies with Japan, Italy, Hungary, Romania, or even Bulgaria. And yes, of course, Hitler's death didn't really happen that way. Neither did Goebbels and the rest of the German High Command. I guess this was supposed to be like the epic climax of the film, but I just sat there shaking my head in disappointment. If you want to see the real story about how Hitler died, watch the movie Downfall. The truth is actually way more epic. The movie shows that even though Hitler did die during the Battle of Berlin in 1945, the country was in ruins and had the life sucked out of it that it didn't really even matter anymore. But Quentin Tarantino didn't care about showing any of that. He just wanted to praise war, praise violence, and insult the 70 million lives that were lost due to World War II. Inglourious Basterds is the ultimate stinker when it comes to war movies, and maybe also the ultimate stinker when it just comes to movies. And I don't hate it just because it's different. I hate it because of everything I just told you. Do I need to go over it again? May Inglorious Bastards burn in hell. And that's my top 10 worst war movies ever made. I know I'll get a lot of hate mail for choosing Inglourious Bastards as number 1, but no matter what you say, I'm not changing my opinion. And that's all I have to say about that.